So, welcome to Ferri Unfiltered, and I have my special guest, Connie McLaughlin. Hello.
Hello. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm wondering what you've got up your sleeve for me this morning.
Well, there is no
No
sleeves
sleeves.
today. There is no sleeves today, so
So
it's just it's just all go. So as I say, we've got you're an amazing guest to have on. It's actually great to pin you down now because you're obviously extremely busy. Back to work.
I mean, normally I'm extremely busy. For the last, obviously, few months, I've not been, and even I've been back the last sort of 3 days, and then I've got a wee bit of a chunk of time off before the season starts back. So it's been the weirdest, most bizarre time I think I've ever had, and most people are the same, obviously, from working, because you're so used to being so full on. Like, I travel normally quite a lot, and then just being, and we moved house literally the week before lockdown, we were in Edinburgh, and then we'd sort of come through back to Glasgow, and it's been like I'm almost trying to sort of sell Glasgow to my boyfriend who's from Edinburgh, and he's like this is the Glasgow that you sold me here, like there's nothing open. We can't go anywhere. What? He's not actually seen the proper Glasgow until now, so it's been a weird time.
I love Glasgow. Well, I feel we've teased a wee bit for people that maybe don't know what you've done, what you do. They'll be like, what you do? Uh-huh. So why don't we dive into this? So I know what you do. Why don't you tell people what would you say is? I know you cover quite a lot of things. So what would you say is your roles, and what is your job at the moment?
So I'm a broadcaster, a radio and TV presenter, and a journalist. So I predominantly work in sport, football mainly, but I also cover a programme on a Sunday on BBC Radio Scotland, which is about wellbeing, spirituality, and looking through different people's lives and stories with a more sort of spiritual lens, which is a really interesting thing. I also used to have a wellness business called Inner Buzz, which is all about helping people become the best version of themselves. Don't have loads of time for that at the moment, but I'm sort of more focused on my broadcasting again. So it's that's really about the size of it.
Oh, that is class. So how are you feeling about the season kicking off? How are you feeling about empty stadiums, by the way? How is that?
Oh, do you know what? I don't even care about the empty stadiums. I'm just buzzing to get a game. Since I've been a little girl, like, football for me is such a big part of my life. Like, I love it, and in particular, like, I love Scottish football. It's sort of, I remember like going to my first game, and I must have been about 5 or 6, and just being like looking around and being like, what is this? That feeling, there's just an energy in a stadium that I don't think you can replicate anywhere else. People might feel they get it from like gigs or stuff like that, but for me, like, being at a game and that anticipation and everything that goes along with it is just like, it's like something that I find quite addictive. And getting to do that for your job is pretty amazing. But like, for me, I'm just like dying to get into a ground and get back to some sort of normality. For me, it's like a Saturday is so like sort of regimented.
Right.
So now the days are just like a day. Like, I get to Saturday and I'm like, whoa.
I know, this is it. Exactly. Every day just seems to be drifting into the next one. Well, see, when you're talking about your football and the buzz, what your first game? Do you remember your first game?
I do.
Right, go. Hit me with it.
Well, do you know what? I'll give you my first game that I went to, but actually I didn't really know much about it. And then my first game I went to as I went to get my ticket, and I got to go.
Right.
Like that. So the first game I went to was Motherwell against Celtic at Fir Park. My dad worked in the police. He's retired now, but he was in the sort of, I think he knew some of the guys at the gates, and they allowed us to go in and lift us over. It's not there anymore, but it was a section of sort of the main stand at Fir Park that you could kind of like, it was almost like a wall.
Okay.
And you could kind of get over that wall, and we get in through there. And I remember standing, which is now sort of the right-hand side of like the away dugout, and looking around in the smells. And I remember seeing Celtic, and my dad was always obsessed with like, so I've got 3 older brothers. I'm the baby, and he was always obsessed with like making us not support any of the old firm, because he was like, you know, not sort of into that sort of the everything that goes around sort of sometimes being associated with the old firm.
I agree.
And he wanted us to be Motherwell fans, so he was like desperate to get us. And then that was sort of not even like that time as well. I think was it 91 or 92 that Motherwell won the Scottish Cup. And there was like a real sort of, my family, a lot of them are from Motherwell, so, and New Stevenson, like originally my mum and dad and stuff like that, so it was almost, but this is your, you know, your local team. And I'm like, actually, like, we live in Uddingston. That's not my local team. My local team's Celtic, right? So, and obviously, like, at school and stuff like that, it just became more apparent. I remember that day looking over and seeing Paul McStay, and there was something about the colours of the jersey and something about that I just found. I was like, oh, I like them. And just that feeling of, and I was like, remember shouting something and my brother Chris, who's also a journalist, was like whacking me along the side to say, like, shut up, because we're obviously in the Motherwell end.
Right.
So I had no concept of that time of like, there's a wee girl shouting for Celtic or whatever, and you know, I didn't realise. But then, so latterly, the next time I think I went to a game was Celtic against Hibs. It was a temporary stand at Celtic Park, and again, that feeling, I will never forget it, of walking out onto, like, I suppose it would have been like the out to the stadium, but obviously it was a kind of weird makeshift stand.
Okay.
And that feeling of like the sound of different like parts of the ground making noise. And and because, I mean, going from having never been in a stadium apart from Fir Park and going to Celtic Park even at that time, it's massive. And like the weird sort of way that the noise is, and even now I laugh about that, and I think, God, I've never experienced it, and it was something I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't even remember what the score was, but it was just one of those games I'm amazed just to be here and part of like that whole experience of match day, which I think sometimes we lose a wee bit.
I 100% agree with you, because it's just like that, like the whole build up to it, like you say. I remember going to my first game, and I got my uncle's my uncle's from Glasgow, and he lives in Edinburgh, and he was a season ticket for Ibrox. My other uncle lives in Glasgow, so I remember getting in the taxi and sitting there with my packet of discos, eating my discos, and then get into the stadium, and it was Rangers v Dundee, and Alan McCoist that we were discussing beforehand scored 2 goals, and I was just like, this guy's a god. You know what I mean? And it was, but like you said, the smells, the noise, the shouting, it was just all new to me, and I was like, came out and I was like buzzing, and it was just like one of the things. But like football does do that to you. Like, I remember going away to France and I watched James Mclaughin score that goal for Scotland. Aye, and I mean, as drunk as I was, it was a great game. It was
I know. Do you know what? See, that night, I'll never forget that night. I think there's always moments. I mean, even from a Scotland point of view, and I sometimes, like, I think as I've grown and like from a work point of view, you don't allow yourself to have the same connection with your team, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. But so for me, like, Scotland's the only way that I get to express my real, like, how I really feel and really get involved as much as like I used to before when I was younger. Because it's obviously just different now. But so Scotland for me, obviously, it's the ups and downs of having that like love for your country just is sometimes just a wee bit too much to take.
It's an emotional roller coaster with Scotland. I always found I was quite lucky, because when you watched the World Cups, or when we were lucky enough, or the Euros, you would watch it and Scotland get punted out, and I'd be like, oh well, Italy top on. You know what I mean? 'Cause my family's all Italian, so it was like, oh, well, this is fine. I mean, I'm still in it. You know what I mean, it's like
that was me. So like, I used to have like a really, really weird, not weird, but like, I mean, it probably was weird to a lot of people, but for me, like, I was obsessed with Italian football.
Right.
So like, Juventus, so Celtic obviously were my team when I was younger, and Juventus all the way through my sort of early years. I mean, like, every single thing that you knew about or you need to know about Juve, I could have told you. Like that, the Football Italia thing for me was always massive. Getting up in the morning and like taping Gazzetta at 10 o'clock, and then watching the game the next day, and then like I had a pen pal in Turin and all this, and she was giving me all this memorabilia, and just like she'd give me all like, and you said like all the magazines. I mean, I just had like reams and reams and reams of all the stuff. So Italy were obviously my second team as well. So. Because half that Juve team were in that Italian team as well.
Buffon and that, they're just
Buffon, Del Piero, and Inzaghi, like Peruzzi, like all of these players that were just like, oh my God. And my dream was always to get over and to go to Turin and to see Juve playing. And that was like, I used to just, weird, like younger people would be like, try to like obsess over like, take that and all the rest of it. And I was like, Juventus.
No, quite right.
But
quite right.
It's amazing.
That's like my team's Napoli, and it was literally because my gran and grandpa from like Glasgow, it was even my Italian side, bought me. My dad was like, no old thumb tops. No, you're not getting any you can have a Scotland top or an Italy top or an Italian team. That's it.
Yeah.
And that was my dad's rule. And I always remember it was my first top was a Napoli top. And ever since then, that's it. I've been hooked in Napoli. And that's what I do.
A dirty team, Napoli, to be fair.
Okay, they're fine. I would have get Gattuso. That mean you need to be dirty.
They were always known as being like a right nasty team, that Napoli team around about that time, sort of early 2000s, late 90s.
It's
brilliant. I mean, honestly, see, I think back to even that programme, like for me, and I always say this, like the reason I think I wanted to be a football journalist was because of James Richardson.
I love that guy.
Oh, I still love him. He works for BT as well.
Does he?
He works for BT. And then there was this, like, honestly, I used to just like think about how he changed the way like football journalism was, and how you'd like present programs and all that sort of thing. And it made me sit back and be like, oh, like I want to do that. Like I want to do what he's doing. I just make it dead fun and like just like more. That was the kind of birth of like magazine-y type programs. Yeah. Because before that, you never really seen anything like that before. Like, because football, even like broadcasting back then, was quite boring. It was stuff your dad would have watched, you know. It was like grandstand and all that kind of stuff. And for me, like I never really connected with it until obviously I watched that, and I was just like, that's like you can marry both the things you love together, and make it into like something really cool.
I just loved how cool it was. It was just saying it was like a Sunday morning. He's just sitting, just a random coffee shop in Italy.
With gelato.
Aye. I'm like, this guy is brilliant. I mean, and also the intro, like obviously the Football Italia, I just love it. So you obviously, it's like BT and BBC. You covered quite a few bits there. Right, let's talk. What about, where's your favourite place you've travelled to then? Obviously you travel about.
Favourite place I've travelled for? Do you mean for football wise or work?
Well, I've done my homework on you a wee bit, really? So I mean, because obviously we've got some friends in common, so I've done some background work here, Connie. Right. I mean, so but we'll talk about your business first. So, where's your favourite like stadium or country you've travelled to regarding your work?
My favourite. Oh God, that's a hard question, actually. I mean, the Nou Camp would be an obvious one because it's like such a sort of like it's iconic, isn't it, in football to be there and be part of that kind of thing. But I think my favourite place I've travelled to, my favourite football stadium is two different things. So favourite place I've travelled to maybe would be, I was quite recently in Bratislava, which is, in fact, you know, actually, Macedonia. I went to Macedonia with Scotland years ago, and I remember being like, Macedonia, this is quite random. And I remember going to Macedonia and being like, this place is absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was so like, it was so unexpected. I didn't really know, because I never really sort of thought too much about what was happening in Macedonia, strangely. But then going there and just thinking, oh my God, like this is somewhere that you don't even expect to be as like aesthetically beautiful, and the weather was gorgeous, and the people were amazing. I think we won, actually. I think it was maybe a qualifier. And then that actually the only thing I remember apart from being really gorgeous is the fact that we were on air. I was working for Radio Clyde at the time, and we were doing sort of bits and pieces in a Super Scoreboard, and there was wasps everywhere. And I've got like a weird wasp thing, and I'm like, anything else like bees or like any insects, you could put a tarantula out and I'm not really that bothered, but a wasp. Really? So I'm like trying to pretend I'm totally fine on air and doing all this and like moving about as like they're properly attacking us, like they're everywhere. But Macedonia probably is one of my favourite, most random places that I've been to for work, I would say.
Nice. Who would you say is like, obviously you've spoke about obviously Football Italia, stuff like that. Who would you say is somebody that you've interviewed that you've just blown my mind?
Oh, Paolo Maldini, I think. Really?
I'd love to meet him.
Oh my God. I mean, he was like, talk about like energy that, you know, when you meet someone, like I've been lucky enough to interview quite a few people who like through Champions League games. So like Messi coming through, Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, like that, like big sort of Manchester United, Barcelona teams, that sort of thing when Celtic or Rangers played them. But I remember being in a mix zone at Celtic Park when Celtic had played AC Milan and just turning around, and then there was this big like Roman god standing, and it was Maldini, and he took his time with every single person. You know, he's not only physically, I mean, he's massive, big, huge, face and cheekbones and big piercing blue eyes.
He's a big handsome bastard. I
mean, he's handsome as anything, but it was more just about like his presence rather than how he looked. It was just he walked in and you were just like, "Hi, there's Paolo Maldini." And especially for me, from an Italian football point of view, I was just like, "Oh my God, there's Maldini," and being in like, you know, captain and somebody who's like, I mean, even just that, like the dynasty of that Maldini family with Cesare Maldini and everything else and all that means to Italian football, that was like amazing. He was such a cool guy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. By the way, I don't know how you're going to top that, because he is one of my favourite all-time players. And like you say, like the fact that like, his dad played, now his son's playing, it's just.
I'm rubbish though. Like I forget. So like, see if you ask me this again in an hour, I'll probably think of someone else. But I can. It seems to be, and people will say this. Some people are really good at remembering like really specifics of like, you know, 3 years ago on a Tuesday I was at this game and this was the score and whatever. Like I'm really bad for that because I feel as if like they tend to just merge into one, you know, because you're doing them in such a regular basis and it seems to be like day after day or week after week. So I'm quite rubbish, but that one always sticks out in my mind as being like, wow, you know, there's Maldini and he's quite cool.
An amazing experience. Some of the people you've met are just like, they're brilliant. I feel like I should just buy a string of football tops, give you them, and just hope to God you can get some signed. I mean, they're just unbelievable.
I went through a phase of that actually, like
doing
that with like getting really good tops, and see now, like giving them away, like maybe dinners or stuff like that. And now I don't even think I get any. I think I've got one Scotland top from years ago, and there somewhere, and I've randomly got a pair of Scotland socks, and a Drogba's boot for a while. And then I don't even know. I don't know where the rest. And I think they're all just like
the amount of people you're meeting. But where would you keep all the tops? That is the thing.
Exactly. I'm not, and I think it's better that they're giving away other things that are a wee bit for better causes.
You've got the experience, man. You can't buy that. At the end of the day, you couldn't buy that. So let's talk about experiences, wellness. Obviously, we're going to dive back into everything. But you obviously spoke about your business. You're obviously got a background. Is it psychology? You've got a background in.
So I studied originally journalism, and then there's a big long story about that, but I was quite young at the time and I always knew I wanted to be a journalist. And then I went to Napier Uni in Edinburgh, and it was just like I think I was only like 16, maybe turning 17 at the time, and it was too soon. So I came back to Glasgow, and then they were like at Cali Uni, they said to me, listen, there's going to be a journalism course starting next year. So if you start this like social science course, what you can do is you can just join the journalism course like next year. So I did that, and then the course didn't start for like another 3 years. So I was kind of stuck doing this social science course, and at the time I was really into like politics, and then the psychology stuff just ran alongside it. And then I didn't really realise at the time how kind of useful that was going to be looking back. And then I finished that, never really thought any more about it. And then I went to do my postgrad in journalism, and then just that path sort of started. And it was only really latterly that I'm like, oh, this stuff's quite useful. And it's not even necessarily the content there. It's probably just the experience of having a basis, I think, in it. It helps, because I think most of my learning came later. But yeah, that sort of helped me along the next part of my journey.
Is that when you started your other business? Obviously, I know you don't have as much time for that just now. Did you sort of drift into that like as well? Like,
nah, it wasn't a drift moment. It was a proper epiphany moment. Like, right. So I worked for Sky at the time down south, and I moved down there from Radio Clyde, and thought, oh my God, like this is it. This is the big change, the big move. I'm going to go down there, step aside Kirsty Gallagher. Here she comes, and then I got down there and I was like, this is not really what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, really?
Well, because they'd started off this digital radio station, and I'd moved to do that. So I was presenting like a breakfast programme on that, which was listen to the experience. Looking back again now, it's amazing what you can do in reflection. It was such an amazing experience in terms of helping me get a broader range of sport. But at the time I was miserable. Oh man, I was so miserable. Like I was properly like left all my friends, my family. This had been the first time I'd ever moved away from home before. Like I was 25, 26. And even though like I know now like loads of people go and do stuff at that age and whatever, but for me, like I was such a home bird. And you know, like a lot of people go and travel for uni or move. Like we all stayed in Glasgow. There's a big group of our friends, and you were always kind of scared you'd be missing out on something, like, you know. So, and you know, my family was really close. I'd never moved away. And I really struggled, I think, with like being on my own, living on my own, and not having that safety net of having people round about you, and sort of having to really like start your life again, I suppose, like make new friends. And even though it's only like 3 hours away in the car, it's still like you're not just nipping home for a cup of tea, or you kind of just nip home at the weekends to see your pals if you're working or you're doing stuff. So like I think I got myself into a situation where it was almost like, you know, when people say they start meditating and they strip back all the busyness of their, or they settle down, and then they begin to see all the busyness that's already in their mind. Like I think for me, stripping back all the stuff, like all the social life and, you know, the other stuff, the busyness going around with work, I just had like myself and my own thoughts like down there. And sometimes that can be quite a scary thing to realise sort of what's going on in your head, and how you think about yourself and what you think about really where you're at. And that caused me quite a bit of turbulence, I think is probably the best word to use. And I really needed to find a way to try and manage how I was feeling, because I don't think I was like depressed, but I think I was on the road to it, and I was pretty sort of in a place where it didn't feel comfortable. I was really uncomfortable with how I was feeling. I was thinking I was always the next thing. I wasn't happy where I was. I felt as if I should have been doing more. I had all this sort of drive and didn't really know what to do with it, and it was uncomfy. And I remember a girl that I knew, one of the only people that I knew really down there, was a girl that did my spray tan.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where I was going for the spray tan, to be honest, but I had nowhere to go. But and she was like spraying me away, and she's a lovely girl, and she was like, listen, there's this meditation class, you should go along to it with this girl that I know, her name was Roxy. And I was like, well, you know, I was very open to stuff like that, but I'd never really practiced fully meditation, but I was always sort of very interested in more of the alternative side of life and spirituality and that sort of stuff, but I'd never really sort of delved into it too much. And I went along in this class, and I remember like it was in this wee like creepy hairdressers, right? And you had to like climb up this staircase and into like almost, which was like a kind of loft space that you kind of thought, and I'm like, am I getting trafficked here? Like, what is this? Like, this is something's not right. And so I went into like this room, and she had like the candles and stuff on, and like these kind of cushions. And I remember just sitting down and being like, do you know what? I just got to let this go and just see what happens here. And I remember sitting down, and it was like an hour's guided meditation that she did, and it blew my mind. Like it really blew my mind. And I was like, what the hell was that? I remember walking out and thinking like what happened there? And thinking, right, well, probably I need to like know more about this. So that kind of started like this obsession with like well-being, what happened to me that day. Like if I could open up myself and almost draw myself and ground myself back in within the space of an hour, having never done it before, what the hell else can you do? And the business really, after sort of my own learning and being involved in that for quite a number of years, I just kept thinking like, how is this not a thing? Like, why are we not talking more about this? If I can feel so much better compared to where I was at just by doing these simple things, why are we not in a position where the general public know about this? So that was my kind of mission, was to try and help people to understand what I was doing, how it helped me, and in the hope that it would help other people as well.
That's brilliant. This is ideal. This is exactly why like we have put people like yourself on. It's like experiences like that you like you said, like an hour just shifted you into say like thinking differently, grounding you. And I've experienced that myself. Like I was actually talking about that last week with my guest Karen, and she does Reiki, and I palmed Reiki off. I was like, shite, I'm not interested, hippie, I'm not doing it. And it wasn't until everything happened to me, and when my nurse sent me to like a woman, and she was like, I'm going to do Reiki. And at that point I was the lowest of low, couldn't have get any lower. And I was like, do you know what? I'll try it. I don't care anymore. I'll just try it. And it was insane the difference I felt. And to that point, I was like, obviously until everything happened with lockdown, I was more or less going for Reiki like once a month. And like I would say to my mates, and some of my mates are now like, Reiki? Really? Oh, I actually might give that a bash. To the point where this is guys were like, no, I'm never going to stuff like that. they're opening up to a wee bit more, because I think because I was so standoffish with stuff like that. Now I'm like loving all this, like meditating, stuff like that.
You know, the thing I found though, and again, it's like, it's all about like being able to look back and think about sort of how I did things then and how I probably approach things now, is that I had this belief that actually if everyone did this, they would feel better. If everyone had this viewpoint, they would feel this way. But actually what I've realised is like loads of people are not ready for that. Loads of people are maybe don't want to do it, right?
Yep.
And maybe are not in a place where actually that's for them, or they've got other learning to do, or they've got. And I don't mean that to sound like almost like patronising. Just mean like I believe that our lives have all take sort of different paths. We all take different roads to get to where we need to be, and not one thing fits everyone. And I think that's one thing that I didn't quite realise, because I was on this evangelical sort of mission. If everybody just meditates and they just use like, think about the law of attraction and all these things, whatever. Like actually, but do you know what? It doesn't work for everyone, because it's not the right thing for everyone, in my opinion. And everyone's got to find their own way that's right for them. And I think the most important thing in the message I would always give now, even speaking to clients or anything that I would do, is like getting yourself into that place where you feel as if you can know yourself the most, connecting into that thing that's you, and then you make the decision for yourself. So try loads of different things and just find out what the thing is that works for you. Because some people like you, it'll be exercise. You know, that'll be the thing that takes them into that space, and that they'll find their joy and be in their flow. For other folk, it'll be meditation. For other folk, it'll be music or what. Like everyone is different, but I just think that the most important job that we've got to do is just get connected to ourselves enough that we can be clear enough on the right path that takes us into that space. And that's the biggest thing I think I've learned.
No, and I'm singing to the same hymn sheet as you. You're right. Not everything is going to suit everybody. And this is what I've been experiencing talking back to my clients now. I'm talking to them, and it's like, well, they're like, oh, I need to do this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're saying, it's finding something just to get them back, finding something to suit them. And you're completely right. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's some things I've tried, other things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I tried hypnotherapy. I'm trained in hypnotherapy. It doesn't work. I don't feel it works necessarily for me, but things that have surprised me work for me, like Reiki, meditation. But like you said, exercise is my thing. Like, I can go in there and I've become me again, and that's the thing. So there you are. Oh, look at this. Oh, I can't worms here.
No, days later, we're still talking about it.
I know, we could go in here for ages. So I know that you've worked down south. Have you worked anywhere else?
Yes, in America. Which is
really? I never knew that. I mean,
so whenever I went on my evangelical mission with Inner Buzz, I remember sitting, my brother, my eldest brother, he helps design businesses, which was quite handy.
Nice.
And he was starting to grow his business in the States, and he said, listen, why don't you come over with me, try this out, test the material, test it on different types of clients, different types of, I suppose, demographic, in terms of ages, ethnicity, social background, and just see where it lands. So I did. I went to the States and went to Chicago initially for 3 months, and then came back. Then initially again went out for 3 months, and then went again, obviously keeping in line with the visa for the immigration men that are listening. And then I actually started growing quite a good sort of space within like tech startups, like incubators around Chicago, who were really open to that sort of thing. I genuinely felt as well that in the States, but they're probably in certain areas, I would say probably Midwest, the East Coast, certain parts, and certainly certain parts of like Southern California, from my own experience and the small experience that's been, they're ahead of us by quite a considerable distance in terms of how they think about the stuff I was talking about. So, for example, I remember going into a talk in London in the city, talking to financiers, talking to guys who were kind of CEOs of companies, like people who were really quite influential guys. walked in there, gave them a chat about, you know, this is what I did and this is, you know, where I came from, whatever else. And I remember, oh my God, and this is like one time I remember just being like, I am dying on my arse here. Like, from like dying. And I'd done that a million times, right? And like, obviously for me, from a work point of view, public speaking is not something that I'm concerned about. I love it, right? I love being in that space, and it's just like, it's just you're in your flow, you're chatting to folk, and it's a good sort of place to just do your thing. But you can tell very quickly the energy you're getting from the audience and how that's coming back and forward, right? And I was just like, oh no. And doing the exact same talk, right, at an incubator in the States, in Chicago, was just like, I did a meditation with like the same sort of like visualization exercise with the same type of groups. I had one woman in Chicago saying she'd just seen Jesus. And then the one in London was just like, I mean, you were not getting any feedback then, it was terrible. But and that is like, I mean, that's totally anecdotal in terms of saying like how we compare as countries, right? But it's just a wee example of how like the experiences I think that I've had in terms of like, they're quite a different audience. And obviously there's people here who are so all about this, and they're so sort of like, this is their thing and they're really passionate about it. That is very commonplace, and especially like, so I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles as well, and like in LA it's just the norm, like people, the way, like, so how they advertise stuff, you can tell how people just generally spend their time. It's not around like, so here it'd be more like, do you want to go for a drink at the weekend, we'll go for whatever, whereas it's like, you know, it's much more about, yeah, we'll go to yoga, or we'll go to meditation, or we'll go to soul cycle, or we'll go for we'll go hiking, or we'll go whatever. It's just and there's loads of things, I suppose, and reasons for that, like weather and all that sort of stuff as well, but it's just a different mindset. So for me, I felt like going out there, it was just going to be easier to you know, express myself, easier to feel more comfortable for me doing it as well, I suppose, because I still felt a wee bit like I was coming out of the closet here. And so things took off really well. But again, like, you're kind of stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea, because there's lots of issues with visas and all that sort of stuff that doesn't make that as easy. But I was kind of working with companies that were based there from here remotely, which was great.
Right, okay.
Amazing experience, unbelievable experience. I feel so lucky to have had the time to experience the sort of more Midwest, like Chicago's more kind of like here, and LA's just another.
Oh, LA's another planet. See, when you were in Chicago, did you go to Giordano's for a pizza?
Giordano's, whereabouts is that?
Are you kidding me on? They're everywhere. It's like a big, massive. Did you get a deep base pizza when you were in Chicago?
No, so I hate deep pan pizzas.
So I'd like a normal pizza, but you have to get one.
Like a pizza from Rome, and they're the flat, like proper Italian pizzas. Deep pan pizzas are just like, it's like eating a roll.
Oh, for goodness sake. You need to have it when you're in Chicago, though.
No, I actually didn't. But there's a place actually round from a place called Hubbard Street, and it was like the place you would go for deep pan pizza. I can't even remember what it's called. Ultimately, sorry to burst your bubble.
You've totally burst my bubble. But I agree. The sides of America are so different. Like, Laura's family's all from like New York and New Jersey, but like we've been like, backpacking and stuff like that. But when we were on honeymoon, we went to Chicago. I love Chicago, like you say, it's a bit like here. Loved the place. But then when I was backpacking, I was in LA. It was the most bizarre experience I've ever. Like, people are just completely different. Like I mean, I looked like when I was backpacking, I'd grew my hair, and the sun had made it a lot lighter. And this woman stopped me to tell me I was a reincarnation of Kurt Cobain. I looked nothing like Kurt Cobain, but like it was just, I was like, Laura, this place is totally fucked up.
I love it. Like, there's something about LA. Like, I think there's a freeness of a freedom of expression. There's a freeness of being yourself in LA that I think that you don't get a lot of other places. And there's a reason there's certain types of people that are drawn to there. I mean, obviously you've got all the shite that's all the you know, film stuff and the entertainment and all that. Like, and then that is a part of it. But that was never the thing that attracted me to LA. It was more just about the lifestyle, and it's not like the Kardashian side of what you would see, more like the hills and Calabasas and stuff. It's more like actually like Venice and like for me, just like that kind of like realness of being at the beach and just like, I don't know, just being I'm basically just a hippie, except I can be an acceptable hippie there and I can't be that here.
An acceptable hippie. That's a new term I've never heard, but we'll go with that. Yeah. So you're back to work now. See, with regarding football, obviously, seeing you cover like boxing and that as well, don't you? Like, are you quite into boxing?
I mean, I would always say like my focus is always football, but when I'm covering different sports, I mean, Jesus Christ, I've like done curling quite recently. Curling, boxing, swimming, like anything. Then you always get really into it when you're doing it. But it's not necessarily something that I would think that I I don't like sit and be like, right, okay, who's on in the undercard today? But it's sport and sport when you're a sports journalist.
With your job, I mean, do you find that you need to go and like, obviously you know football inside out, but then like, see if you get like punted into like rugby, like boxing, cricket, like, do you need to go and study the sport slightly, like to like understand it? Because like, I mean, I couldn't tell you if they went to me, like, Chris, you're covering cricket today, I'd be like, I don't know anything about cricket. Is it rounders? I don't know. Like
listen, see, after like 11 or 12 years or however many years I've been doing this, like cricket's still a challenge for me. I'm not gonna lie, I still don't. And even like they'll laugh about it, and there'll be. So I sometimes do the news channel for the BBC, and obviously you need to do like live score updates. So see, when it comes to live score updates for the cricket, I'm always like, you get someone in your ear, so I'm almost like, just tell me the words to say. Just tell me the words to say. Like obviously I can read a scorecard and whatever, but if there's something happened, like I can tell when someone's taking a wicket or like. But when there's, I mean, when it got to last year when there was like the Super Over. And there was all sorts of things happening with like the Ashes and stuff. I mean, that was like, but it was actually really exciting. Like cricket's not my favourite, but again, I think it's just because we don't know it well. It's not something that we're familiar with massively, being Scottish. But in terms of research, God, that's half the job. Because if you don't research well, you're found out very quickly. So research is a big part of what I do.
Do you obviously find that, like, obviously with more sort of like channels coming in, like obviously you work with BT and BBC, see things like ESPN and everything coming in, are you noticing an element of like the presenting? Are they ever wanting you like you obviously see American presenters are like so different? Have they ever went to use like wanting a different element, or do they just want you to be natural, just be like yous?
Nah, that's not really happened to me before. But I think that I always say, and I always feel like when you're the best you can be on air. Like 100%. And I even see that when other people are presenting, I'm thinking, God, if I could only just see a bit more you. Because like the actual you that you see is just amazing, and it's infectious. And obviously there's times where, it's not as if, and by that I'd been like not being on air and being like ha 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 all the time. It's just like, actually, even when you're delivering something that's quite serious, or you're talking about something that's quite serious, it's just about actually that authenticity, I think, is really important to get across. And I think that from a presentation perspective, no matter what you're doing, whether it's coaching, no matter if it's doing something on YouTube or you're recording digital content, the most important thing I always say is for people just to be themselves. And I think like that doesn't mean to say you don't have to come in and sit and do podcasts in your jammies, incidentally.
Hey, there's nothing up with that. Nobody would have knew unless you said it. You've told everybody now they know.
But I am in my pyjamas. But like, I mean, just about you and letting people see your vulnerability and letting people see that, it's not always this amazing life where you tell people the sort of the edited version of your life on Instagram. And equally, it's not about saying, this is what happened to me and when, whatever. It's about actually your authenticity, about like just you as a person, how you can get that across. It's not an easy thing to do, by the way.
No, like I love like watching, like, what's his name that's got the wee thin moustache on Sky Sports?
David Guerrero?
No, they're on like Jeff and the Gang. It's like, what's it?
Remember, I obviously don't work for Sky and don't.
I know. I'm just talking about like me, but like when they're on, like you can tell the group of them sit and watch. Cammy, that's it. Like, but do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, like he's got his bloopers now that you see on Facebook and stuff.
He's so successful because he's just himself. That's my point.
And this is what I love about it. That this is what I would never want to see any of that took away. Like just the natural, like having a laugh. Like, I don't know who scored there. I actually wasn't paying attention. I mean,
who's really good at that as well? and why his podcast is so successful. Ferri.
Oh, really?
Sai, like, I don't know if you watch Open Goal, but like his podcast, I mean, it's like massive. Like they get crazy amounts of views, and their success has been mad. It's so successful because Sai on that podcast is exactly as if you're sitting in the room or whatever. Really good at being himself. And I think that's exactly the thing that translates, and that's just another example of how that works.
Oh, I'm going to actually now go and creep on that. Like, this is what I've been doing, like, just to learn, because I'm obviously learning from all this. But no, I agree with you. Like, I wouldn't like to become across like dead fake or anything like that. So I'm not very good at getting told what to do. This is hence why I own my own business. So, do you know what I mean?
These days.
Well, there you are. But we dive in some random questions.
Go on.
Right, you ready? Right, so
I mean, I'm going to take I've got my happy cup today.
Oh, I'm loving it, by the way. What about, I get what you call it, Karen, I know, bought me a mug with my face on it. It's just, and people are like, that is so vain. And I'm like, I never bought it for myself. Like, somebody bought me it.
Why not?
I like it. No, I mean, so with it being called Ferri Unfiltered, the plan was when I was starting the pod, we obviously started during COVID, so I snookered myself. Mm-hmm. But when I go back to normal, and you'll get you back on, I was going to make you a coffee, right? So if I was making you a coffee, what would I make you?
You wouldn't make me a coffee because I can't drink coffee.
What? Well, okay,
no.
What was you drinking?
Because I can't, it gives me palpitations. I'm really, I can't drink anything like that. Like, or kombucha or anything with any sort of like caffeine, or even if it's natural or not. So what would I have? I actually, at the moment, I'm just drinking hot water and lemon. I know that's quite boring, but that's what I drink.
I could do that. I'm sure I could buy lemons. I could buy
or even just hot water. I'm
really
quite easy. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I can drink
hot water all the time. But do you know the thing is, like coffee or tea? And this is absolutely boring chat, right? But it's more about the habit of drinking something hot. So it's about the thing about boiling the kettle and pouring it in and whatever, instead of like constantly thinking you need a cup of tea. It's just the reassurance and like the almost comfort that brings you. So see if you do it with hot water after a couple of days, guarantee you'll not go back to tea or coffee.
Well, I used to drink a lot of coffee, very quick. I was like double espresso, stuff like that. And I was like, I did it when I was doing the bodybuilding show because pre-workouts stopped working for me. I was like, this isn't working, this isn't keeping me awake. So I started getting double espressos. But like you say, like, I moved on to like green teas and stuff like that. That's what I drink. I have a coffee in the morning because I like it. But okay, so I'm not making you a coffee. Thanks for snooker and making my chat pure shite. But we'll go away. I'll make you a hot water. I can do that. Yeah. Right. Now I'm going to move on to the next thing. We spoke a wee bit about pizza. If I had to get you a pizza, what would I be getting you, and what toppings would I have?
So obviously, I know I'm such a bore, right? But I try and stay off the dairy as well, mainly for my animal, because I've been vegetarian for years. But I'm trying to really try and sort of to do the vegan thing.
Were you becoming a vegan? I knew you were a veggie, but
I'd say I'm 90% vegan. So in the house, like we have everything's like all our dairy, our milks, our butters and stuff are all dairy free. But the odd occasional time, like I'll have like a pizza or something, like that's the only time I would really eat cheese.
Is your partner the same?
He's vegetarian.
That's quite easy then.
He's all over the cheese. No, he's not bothered about being vegan, and he's not really doing it for the sort of animal reasons he just prefers like that from a health point of view. I think he's more getting around to the whole animal thing, but so I would have probably a margarita with like maybe some basil or something on it. Or even just a veggie supreme or something like that. I'm quite happy with that.
I'd give you them. I actually like just a margarita pizza with a bit of basil. That's actually one of my favourites.
Nice, really thin, like properly thin pizza. But vegan cheese is minging, so I wouldn't have that.
I agree with you. I don't take dairy, and vegan cheese is just shit. Right. Let's just be honest. Sorry, vegans. Right, okay. Now, this is one I enjoy hearing. I mean, I'm waiting to hear yours. Right? God,
I know. I'm going to need to refer to my notes because I'm sure I did actually write these down because this was obviously just for transparency. We were meant to record this last week, weren't we? And I had
to. So it's all good. Got to keep me anticipating just to see who you're going to get. So we're going to get 5 guests that you're going to invite for dinner. That they can have your margarita pizza with a hot water, right? But who would you have as your now, dead or alive? Not physically dead. Remember, they're not coming back as zombies. They're just as the future. Yes.
So Oprah.
Oh.
Oprah would be what? She'd be. definitely there. I'm going to need to say like Jesus.
Oof, I've had 7 episodes and I've never had Jesus. So we're in 8 now. So thank you very much. There we go. The big man gets a shout out for once.
Oh, listen, if you're going to have MD, you're as well just finding out what the whole point of this whole situation is. Like,
right, what was the deal here, Jesus?
It's a one-to-one. What's going on? And what should I do about this? What should I do? I mean,
is it offensive when I don't know. Jesus, give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts, Jesus.
Jesus, Michael Jordan.
By the way, I'm just into episode 2 of that. My
God. That is just like, don't even get me started. That's a separate podcast. I think I would also have Phil Jackson as well.
Aye.
I might like just so have them on Oprah, Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, Jesus. If I get one more, I probably should do a woman, just to like balance it up a wee bit. Who would my woman
To be fair, Oprah is a strong enough woman to hold that table herself.
Exactly. So, but we'd need somebody to make it a bit like, to sort of like, I don't know, balance it slightly. Who would my woman be? Oh God, you're going to edit this because this is going to be one of those ones you're just like,
this is natural chat, remember we says people appreciate real people, so let's go.
I know, but they don't appreciate sitting watching me thinking for 20 minutes.
Humming and hawing. If they're watching it on YouTube, they'll just be like, is that her pyjamas she's in?
So Michael Jordan, or who do I love? Michelle Obama.
It's a good one. It's a very good one. I think she'd be a really interesting woman. Oprah, I just think is extremely interesting. Like, her book's supposed to be very good.
Or Brené Brown, she's also good. But I would maybe she'd be a bit too much in terms of calling me out for like do you know Brené Brown?
No.
Oh my God, write her down. She's amazing.
What does she do?
So she is like a specialist. Now this sounds quite deep, right? But she's like a specialist on vulnerability, authenticity, shame. Like she's got one of the most watched. In fact, no, wait a minute. I'm going to scrap Michelle Obama.
You've just kicked Michelle Obama out your table.
I can't believe this. I've scratched her out for Russell Brand.
Wait a minute here. You have booted Michelle. Michelle's at the door. We're ready to let her in, and I've just went at Michelle. Sorry, Connie's just told you to bolt.
No, Oprah can tell me. They're quite tight, so she can tell me and that she needs to tell me.
Right.
That Michelle.
Russell Brand is just basically body checked Michelle Obama and is now sitting at the table. I like Russell Brand.
I love Russell Brand. I can't believe he wasn't like. Imagine him though. He'd try and overtake the conversation with Jesus, and then I'd be a bit raging. I'd be like, Michael Jordan's trying to speak. Give him a minute. And there's Jesus trying to butt in. I mean, that'd be a great table.
Imagine that table, but you would never run out of wine. There's you with your hot water, going about, pour your hot water, and Jesus just running his hand over it, turn into red wine.
I feel like that. I'm fine for the fishes. Give me a bit of actually, Jesus, not really how I play my game, but thanks very much. If you can make some vegan fish or vegetarian fish.
He's like, Jesus. He can do what he wants.
Aye.
He can do what he wants, man.
Maybe a plant-based Last Supper. That'd be good. Phil Jackson just sitting back like that. Assessing everybody, wondering who fits in where and all that. Oh my God. And by the way, if anybody's watching this or listening to this and don't know who Phil Jackson is, Jesus, there's a book he's got called Sacred Hoops, which is like, what a book that is.
Right.
About how he brings spirituality into sport and how he sort of helped that Chicago Bulls. So he was the coach of the Chicago Bulls, obviously, and helped them one of the most successful teams in the world. And his whole thing was about how he brought the sacredness of like the spirit. So he was very much into like shamanism.
All right.
So he was like, his whole thing was all about sort of Native American sort of traditions and principles, and he'd bring it into the team. So before really important games, you'll see this if you watch that, and if you're only in episode 2, you'll find this out later. But he will go in, and at the timeout, it's like really important timeouts. Maybe they've got 7 seconds left before they're trying to like win a game or win even a series or something. And he helps them by grounding them, anchoring them back in, by helping them visualize. All the players do this thing where they visualize into like a really safe space. So he's bringing all these techniques and stuff in that you would associate maybe with, I mean, this is even like in the 80s and 90s he's doing this. You know, this is like really before its time, like in terms of sports psychology and stuff. Oh, he's amazing. I'd love even any one of those people. I would just love to sit and have an hour with.
Aye. Connie, I really want to ask you, and I've never asked a guest this before, but like, I love reading and like, listening to books and that. Could you give me I maybe bring this on with random people. Can you give me maybe your top 5 favourite books off the top of your head?
So like reading again is one of my favourite things as well. Like I love it.
I didn't know that, Connie. I didn't know that at all. No.
You've been doing a lot of research, haven't you?
I'm a pure creep.
That's part of the job, though. That's good.
That's great.
Top 5. I know, but I wish you'd told me this beforehand, and I would have given you better answers because, like, I'm rubbish at thinking. So, like, when it's stuff like this, when I'm like, I really like this, and I really like. So, there's loads of things I like. But one that pops into my head that I've been reading again over lockdown, which I read years ago, and then I listened to on audiobook a few years after that. But again, you can actually get more from it even every time you read it. The Celestine Prophecy. You read that?
No.
Write that down. Celestine Prophecy with a C. It was in the top US like top like sort of charts for the books. Can't remember what you call it. For like 20 odd years or something, on and off. I mean, it's like UK's bestseller, the US bestseller list, and it was like unbelievable. It sold millions and millions of copies, and there's something about that that's really quite just kind of strips you back into like how do you know when you're meditating, or even if you've just kind of started meditating and you get into that space where you're like dead excited about stuff and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to implement all this stuff into my life, and then you kind of gradually get back to normal life again, and you're like, oh shit, I should have done that, I should have done my meditation, whatever. Whereas like the Celestine Prophecy is dead easy to follow in terms of steps, but it's also a dead good story, so it's actually fiction.
Ooh.
And then there's another one which is like there's the Celestine Prophecy, there's the 9th and 10th Insight, which are 2 separate books, and I'm reading the 12th Insight just now, which is all just follow-ons from that book. Brilliant book. What other ones would I say would I always suggest for people? If you're into wellness, I would always say a good place to start is a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Have you heard of that one before?
No, I've not. That's just why I'm not gonna lie. I'm totally picking your brain for these because I'm getting that audible, getting on audible.
You can get like that. You can actually get on YouTube for free if you want to listen to it. That's a good one. And I'm like, let me just go into my books, because then it reminds me whenever I'm Sacred Hoops. That one actually, I've just finished, and you'll probably.
I'm totally getting that, by the way.
Bill Jackson's like just starting out. So what else?
I've got the see we talking about that. I've got like the Barcelona way. I've got that to read as well.
Oh yeah, Kyle's got that in there actually. The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov is also a really good one. That's on Oprah's like. I finished that a while ago, but that's like one of Oprah's like sort of 10 best books that changed your life. What other ones? Library. Hold on. Seat of the Soul.
Imagine having a book that inspires Oprah. God, that's an achievement.
There's loads actually. I always go into hers and just like, what's she reading? Celestine Prophecy. Do you read a lot of Wayne Dyer?
No, I was listening to Wayne Dyer the other day. I only got introduced to him about a couple of months ago by one of my mates.
Oh God,
I know.
There's so many of the Wayne Dyer books that I would always recommend. The 4 Agreements, you read that? No,
but I will now.
The Alchemist as well is really good.
The Alchemist, I get told to read that. Somebody else said that to me the other day.
And there's also, I mean, like, so for me, Untethered Soul's also really good by Michael Singer. These are all good books. And also Oprah's one, What I Know for Sure, I think it's called. There's actually...
Is that by her?
Aye. Or The Wisdom of Sundays is another one by Oprah. It's really good.
Connie, you've got loads, man.
Oh, I love a good book. And see, because of the travelling, like if I was going back and forward down south or whatever in the car, I always just have an audiobook on.
Aye, I have an audiobook on all the time.
Aye, like I love music, right? But if you're in the car a lot, you want something that's going to keep stimulating you rather than the same like stuff all the time. So for me, I'm always like trying to use that time as well to learn and to sort of get me in a good space for work or. Aye, there's loads of books.
You're quite right. I do that. I'm going out my bike. I just put my earphone in one ear, keep them safe with the other ear. And would you call, as you say, I just listen to a book and just go with that. Thank you so much, by the way. I feel like I've learnt hunters for this now. I'm like, wait till I go back and I will sit and listen back at it and I'm going to take my notes. And now I'm totally picturing your table now with Jesus and Oprah and
I feel like this particular one is not really going to be big enough. Well, although I've got benches, so we might have to squidge up a wee bit. But I don't think Michael Jordan's going to fit his big legs around the table.
He could sit in the bunker or something like that. He could just lean against it. He'd be fine. He'd be fine.
Oh man, I would love that. That'd be I'd love to interview Michael Jordan. Anyway, that's another.
I'm sure it will happen. I'm sure it will happen one day. Connie, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me today and be on Ferri Unfiltered. You're an extremely interesting guest.
Thank you for having me.
No, thanking you, and I'll get this all ready to go so the people can hear it. But thank you once again.